Welcome to episode 16 of the Ready for More podcast.
My whole purpose and passion is I don't want to see people. I've literally seen women who did not want to keep on living anymore after their abortion. And I would go to their house. I would see them lying on the sofa, not wanting to get up, not wanting to live anymore. And that's what drove my heart to feel like this needs to stop. If I can help women to not feel this way, and I know I can, then I will do that no matter what.
Welcome to the Ready for More podcast, where we share success strategies and stories for women business owners, entrepreneurs who are ready for more for yourself and for your business. I'm your host, Heather Cameron, and I'm here to help you to discover your unique path to profitability, success, so you can achieve your more on your own terms. Are you ready for more? You can find today's show notes and links at www.igniteyourmarket.com/readyformore. Welcome to the Ready for More podcast. My guest today is Michelle Durand. Michelle is a life and business coach in Austin, Texas. She is also the founder of Tears to Treasures, helping women and men find healing and closure from past abortion experiences. Michelle's personal abortion story has been created into a very powerful movie called Holly's Story in 2003 by Crosswind Productions. Michelle shares her powerful story all over the world, including Indonesia, where she started a pregnancy resource center. Michelle speaks at schools, youth groups, banquets, fundraisers, and churches, and walks for life events, just to name a few. So welcome, Michelle. I'm so excited to have you on this podcast and really excited to share your stories and your experiences. To start with, that was your bio. Can you tell me a little bit more about your current business and your expertise?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm so honored and privileged. And thank you for that introduction. Okay, so currently I help women and men who have been through abortion experiences to process their emotions and to finally find some healing and closure from their abortion experiences.
Excellent. What led you to do that? What led you to it? Because it's a very interesting and very unique and very, in some respects, very courageous business that you're working in. What led you to do that?
So what led me to start this business is my own personal journey that I went through with my abortion experience. So I had an abortion many, many years ago. And afterwards, I didn't want anyone to know, as many women and men do. We try to cover it up and hide it. And I suffered silently and alone for about 15 years. And then I went through my own healing journey. I did a lot of inner work. And after that, when I came out on the other end, I realized that so many other women and men have been through abortion experiences, but yet no one was talking about it. Mm-hmm. And that's what kept me from not being healed and being able to move on with my life, was the fact that it was a silent secret and no one was talking about it. I didn't have a safe place to share what I was feeling, what I had went through. And so after my own journey, I realized that inside of me, a very strong feeling of compassion, and I don't know how else to describe it except something that just does not go away. And it just kept lingering on, that I needed to share my story, because if I keep it to myself, it's really being selfish. And I needed to share that I had an abortion. I suffered for many, many years. And I know many other people are suffering for many, many years, but they don't have to. And so I felt that strong, powerful message that I want to be able to share what I've been through, so that others can also find healing and forgiveness for themselves after their abortion experience. So that is the beginning of Tears to Treasures.
I love that. I mean, like I said earlier, it's very courageous because it's a difficult thing, but there's so many things we don't talk about. I was actually having a conversation with my niece last night, and one of her friends lost a baby. So it's that same idea, and nobody wants to talk about it. And I said, the parents probably do. You have to respect their wishes, but that was still a huge part of their life. And to not talk about it is the wrong solution. Right. And so similar with what you're talking about, it's not talking about it is not necessarily it's not necessarily helpful. We put these things, and they're the real parts of life. So I think what you're doing is very courageous.
Thank you. No, it's not helpful at all, because I didn't want to talk about it because it was painful for me. But yet I needed to talk about it. However, it's also a painful experience for everyone else that was in my life and that was involved with that. So that is compounding, it's like it also affects other people, and, it hurts them and they don't want to talk about it. So it's not only the woman or the man who's going through it, it's also affected by the other people that are in their life that may be affected too. So we don't want to bring it up and cause everyone to feel more pain.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. We'll come back to more of that. But I wanted to ask, just on the vein of kind of giving people an idea of where you come from and what you are, what was your background before? Like, what were you doing before you came and took the step to become a life coach and to work in this area?
So many things. But I was actually working, and I went through a divorce. So again, I had to take a break for a while because I started doing this work back in 2001. And then as life happens, we go on and things that we don't plan for happen. And I went through a divorce and custody, and then my children grew up and they moved on. And I was before my daughter moved on, I was working at a corporate job because that was the norm. I was a single mom now, and I felt like fell back into the trap of corporate, of trading my valuable, precious time for money. And yet the money wasn't enough, and the time wasn't enough, and it was just not enough. And I was ready for more. I was ready to share my life. That the last year with my daughter was her high school year. Then she was moving on to California to go to college. And I had to make a very difficult decision. And I went back to that original calling that I felt in 2001. And I looked at where I was. At this point, I was 45, single mother. My son had already moved to California. He was a year older than my daughter. My daughter was going to follow him. It was her senior year. I made a really hard decision to resign from that very, very good job that I had, to give that up, all the security, to launch my business. And I did that. So that was back in 2010, 8 years ago. I never took another corporate job. I do not look back. I don't regret it. It was the best decision I made. Was it easy? No, it was the hardest decision, one of the hardest decisions of my life, and even harder to walk through. So so then at that point, that's when I decided that I'm going to do this. This is important. These women and these men's lives are important, and this work is important. And I decided to dedicate my life again to this work. And so that's where I'm at now. Yes.
That's fantastic. So, I mean, I hear so often I find two types of women who end up in entrepreneurial positions. They're the ones like yourself who took courageous decisions and stepped into it, and they had a passion. And then there's ones like myself who were in corporate, the bubble burst technology, and all of a sudden I was faced with figuring out what I wanted to do with my life, and I didn't want to go back into that corporate high-tech world. So therefore I chose the entrepreneurial path. But I tend to find women kind of fall into those two categories. And many women 40 plus actually are women who may have even come to the end of their corporate career logically. They might be 55, they take early retirement, but they're not ready to stop. And that's when they also do it. So yours is one of many, kind of courageous stories.
Thank you.
How has your business evolved since you started it? So you started it and you came and you took that courageous step. How has it evolved?
So it has been an interesting evolvement, actually. So back when I first resigned in 2010, the business model that I had a vision for was a nonprofit. So I made the decision that I was going to organize this as a nonprofit organization, which I successfully did, which is not an easy task. So if anyone has started that venture of nonprofit, to become a 501c3 is very challenging. It's it's a lot of work. But I did that work, put in the time. We got approved. And so I had fundraisers, and I did the nonprofit business model, and it served the women. It served us for that time when I was living back in Louisiana. That's when I did this. So a lot of opportunities came forth. I was able to speak at a big, huge Walk for Life, the very first Walk for Life in Louisiana. So lots of great things came from that experience. I learned a lot. I grew a lot. then as life happens again, it was time for me to sell. After my daughter moved to California, it was time for me to sell my home, and I was ready to move on as well. So I relocated to the Austin, Texas area. And that's been about 5 years ago. And so after that, I made the decision to, again, as we evolve with the internet, okay? So the internet has evolved since then. Mm-hmm. And I was able to then at this point, I realized that if I have a business model where I'm meeting them in person, I can only meet with a certain number of people, and it's limited to their location. So therefore, I wanted to bring it online. And so the nonprofit just didn't serve. It was in Louisiana based. So that was dissolved, whenever I sold and moved back in 2014, we dissolved that one. And I, just continued on my entrepreneur journey. I do multiple things, online, but I've always been an online marketer. However, taking this online felt really good because I have clients that I speak to that are all the way in near Turkey. I have some that are in South Africa. So wherever they are, the beautiful thing is that with the internet now, I was able to bring my business virtually. And so that's where I am now as we're on this worldwide in our space online, and that's where I'm at now. So I'm actually working with women and men via video messaging, video call. So I'm very grateful for the internet.
I love that because I think it's one of the things that I love about the internet and the ability. But what you highlight is that no matter the type of business, you're doing something that's very personal and very, it's very core and very fragile.
Yes.
Kind of discussion that you're having, but you can have it all over the world and you can help, which must be fascinating because the cultural differences in where you're at is huge. Even for me, it is as well, but for you, it would be even more. That online businesses, and that when we look at our businesses as women, we don't have to be geographically defined.
Yeah. Right. And what really warms my heart is that fact that I lived in Indonesia from 1995 until 2000. I lived in Indonesia, and back then there was barely dial-up connection. So I definitely appreciate how far we've come. Mm-hmm. And, and it helps me as well to relate to people from all over the world with my background and my experience. Then we moved back to Indonesia in 2004, and I started another nonprofit over there helping women who were pregnant in unplanned pregnancies. So I started a pregnancy center actually in Jakarta, Indonesia, before my divorce. So it helps with just having that experience of other cultures and how they view pregnancy, how they view abortion even. That all definitely helps. It comes into play a lot when I'm meeting with people. They have different beliefs, different spiritual practices, different laws even where they live, And so some places not even acceptable to have an abortion, much less have feelings after an abortion. Can't talk about that.
No, that's powerful. And that's the beauty of being in, and I agree with you too, I started my business in 2003 and 2004, the amount of things that we can do now with things like Zoom, like for the audience, we're recording this interview on Zoom, the things that we can do and connect, and the ease to which things used to be so difficult in business. Some of the really tough stuff, like getting your website in 2003 or 4 was a really expensive, difficult thing, and you couldn't do any of it yourself. Now you can get up and running on a website really fast. So there are, so I think a good message for listeners is that you can take any business virtually. You can take something in discussion about abortion and something so personal virtually. You can take any business virtually nowadays. Doesn't mean you have to. If you choose to work locally, that's fine. But you do have the opportunity to take anything to a virtual way and make it and reach out to people all over the world.
And it's so important because the people that I talk to, they don't have anyone in their area that can understand what they've been through, or even who maybe have gone through what they've been through. And I find that that's where they really, really, really are grateful. The fact that they can get on their phone even, and connect with me. And I'm right there, like I'm in person with them and can listen to them. I can watch their expressions. I can feel what they're feeling, and I can help them best because it's like I'm sitting right there face to face with them.
Well, and I also think there might even be some comfort in knowing that you're not going to run into you at the grocery store.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, there's sometimes to talk about something very personal, having, you know, I have a couple of clients who work in finance area, who work in, you know, the personal finance and dealing with not being on top of your finances and budgets. Sometimes not knowing the person and not having to see them in your social circles allows you to open up more, allows you to share more than if you were seeing them or had the I was going to say threat, but you had the worry that you could bump into them and not having that. So
such a good point. I love that. Thank you so much for bringing that out. It's so true.
yeah, that's good. What would you say is the most important thing you've learned on this journey that you've gone from quitting your corporate job to where you are now?
Wow. The most important thing that I've learned from quitting my job and where I'm at now is to listen to my intuition, and to really trust it. Even though it feels scary, it feels like it could be the wrong thing, because we never know when we take a risk. It could be a great thing. It could be not a great thing. But to listen to your heart, like to listen to my passion, because actually when things went wrong in my life or went the way I didn't think, I would find myself running back to corporate. And that was like not a good thing, because that's not where I was meant to be. But I'd run back out of fear, and I would find myself back in the same situation again. And I'd be like, now I got to go through this again, you know, and to keep learning the lesson that to trust that if we have a passion and we have a calling and we feel like we know what our purpose is in this world, that's huge. So many women, even women in their 40s and 50s, don't even yet know what their purpose is. And, you know, especially if they've been a wife and they've been like me, I was a mom, I was a wife, I was these roles. And when that was taken away from me, I felt stripped naked. Like, who am I? I didn't even know who I was. So the most important lesson I've learned is just to not lose yourself through life.
I love that. I love what you brought up. There's so many points you brought up in that. Excuse me. The first was, you know, women have so many roles. And I think many women I meet undervalue the roles that they have. Right?
Yes.
They go, what am I going to do? I don't have this skill. Well, you get your kids to school on time, and you got your, you know, or in my case, I was my parents' caregiver for the last 5 years. I dealt with really huge decisions in that respect. You know, you get your kids to school, you deal with going through a divorce. I mean, or getting married or buying, like we deal with so much. And for some reason, a lot of women aren't able to see that that is a value and that, you know, all of a sudden you are in your 50s and 60s or 40s, 50s and 60s, and you want to do something, and having the courage and listen to your intuition is great. And one of the messages I like is that we're not done at 45, 50. We're not over. We can do so many wonderful things.
Oh, beautiful. I know when I turned 50, that was a challenging time too. And I thought, you know what, this is just the rest of my life, you know? And I can choose to make the rest of my life the best of my life.
I love that. Absolutely love that. What surprised you the most? So you went off on this entrepreneurial journey. What has surprised you the most about it?
Well, what has surprised me the most is how hard it is. You know, it may seem, I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I didn't realize how challenging it would be. Again, I'm going to go back to how grateful I am for a podcast, for the internet, for video, for technology, because I was in the hard part of it alone for a long time. So to be able to connect with women such as yourself who are doing this work, and yet you're so far away from me, but we can come together and collaborate like this and help each other, that has been a huge support. But as far as the journey, yeah, I definitely feel that it's a challenging, very challenging journey, but it's so worth it.
And you know, I think that's a great point, because I think all of us as entrepreneurs have moments where we think this is really tough. Why are we doing it? I could go back to the corporate job. And then most of us go, no, no, I don't want the corporate job. And finding that ability to reach out to other women and reach out to other people, whether it's locally going to, you know, call up someone else as an entrepreneur and go for a cup of coffee, or you don't even have to go out these days. You can Bring a friend and say, hey, can we get together on a call? Can we Zoom for 20 minutes? Can we find that thing that supports each other? And the beauty of women is we're actually very good at that part of it. We're not necessarily good at the confidence part sometimes, but we are good at the reaching out and helping each other. So that's a wonderful point that you bring up. Where was I? Well, you've said it, your intuition's a big thing, but how does gut play into how you run your business?
Great question. I believe that our gut is our second brain. I believe that my brain has its purpose, has the logic part of it. But I feel like my gut lets me know. It's like my body's signal that you're on the right path or you're not on the right path. And I love this question because for years, I didn't listen to my gut. I didn't listen to the red flags. And I did what I thought was best for me based on my logic, my mind. And that led me to very, very hard situations. That led me to heartache. That led me to losing things. That was a really hard lesson for me to learn that I needed to trust my gut. But what I have found with women is that we learn to not trust our gut when we have made bad choices and bad decisions that have led us to more pain instead of real. And so, it's like we feel like I didn't listen, and then this is what happened, and it hurts so bad. So I don't really trust my gut. Mm-hmm. That is what I found myself in. And that's where I see a lot of women get stuck. And I had to learn that, okay, I made bad choices. I made wrong decisions because I didn't listen to my gut. But I need to learn to listen to my gut and listen to my instincts and my intuition better. But more than listen is to obey them.
I like that. Right? I do like that. Obey your gut. I think that's kind of a unique way of putting it, because it's, I one of the things you said in that too is my first show on this podcast was about the shoulds. And what you said in that too well is that we tend to tell ourselves what we should be doing based on somebody else's society norm or something we were taught or something we've learned or something. I mean, women get bombarded by advertisement more than I think men do. We get bombarded by what we're supposed to be. And I see the shoulds in business a lot too, right? Like you should be on Instagram, you should be on Facebook, you should be doing this shit, but it's like, no. And you need to ask yourself and listen to your gut. And one of the things that I created for people, if they want to download, it's called the Should Buster. And it's a very simple thing of changing the word should to do I want. And then extrapolating that from do I want and listening to your gut's answer, not just your head's answer. I don't have that in there, but I should put it in there. Of listening to say that, no, like you should be on Instagram, for example. The answer is, do I want to be on Instagram? And the answer might be yes. And then the second part of the question for me about shoulds is it now? And you and I talked before we got on here about your own podcast and when you plan to launch it. And you've come to that gut listening to say, yes, I want to do this, but I want to do it in the new year. Right? To me, that's a really sound business decision, right? It's that listening to your gut, listening to your brain and saying, do I want to do something? And is it right now, or do I want to do it in the future?
I love it, but I also feel like I feel like I should, launch my podcast this year because that's what I wanted to do. And that's what I told myself. And that's what I told other people. And honestly, I was in that trap of, well, I should because I did this. I should because this. I should because this. And I should all over myself, right? Like, I love that saying and I just love it. But I don't love it, and the fact that I have to say, why should I? Mm-hmm. Why should I? And what feels good to me? What works for me and my life? And Heather, one thing that is very important, and I want every woman to listen to this, what we're getting ready to say, is that it is so important that we know what our priorities are, because that helps me when I think I should. It's like, but wait a minute, maybe I shouldn't, what are my priorities? If I say that my family is my priority, and yet starting this podcast is going to take away so much time from my family, then it's not going to align with my
Yes.
goals and my values. So that's another question that I like to ask myself is this in alignment? Is this going to serve me and my core values the best by doing this right now at this time? And I am always working on people pleasing. So that was another thing that came up, another red flag. Are you doing this just to please other people and to not let people down? And so that also can come into our decision making when we're listening to our intuition.
Absolutely. And I think if, the podcast that was out this week was about living a joyful life and about creating a business that supports your life, not re-engineering your, like, I know, and this comes back to that success of business and having businesses that are successful. And when you go into business and you go into business from your passion, it still should. And I have a client who I'm always pushing for this. She loves what she does to passion, but it's like, it needs to be more than you doing the work. It needs to be you getting paid for the work because you deserve to be paid for the work. And it's for you to be profitable so that you can create lifestyle that you want, because then you're going to be a better person doing what it is that you love to do. And I find so many women are not used to putting themselves first. They're not used to putting themselves as a priority, that they treat their businesses like they're another child, and they don't necessarily pay themselves first, which is the topic of the podcast that's coming out soon, is pay yourself first was one person's ultimate business advice. But it's about creating priorities for your business and for your life so that your business supports and fits into your life. You don't sacrifice your life for your business.
Okay, another good point that's coming up from this is, along with that, is boundaries, because I didn't put myself first. I didn't take care of myself. I didn't pay myself. So that led me to not being able to take care of myself, not being able to provide for myself. And I got very sick and I was very stressed out and ended up in the emergency room. So again, then I was in more debt, and then I couldn't help anyone. No one. I went from helping everybody except me, and then I couldn't help anyone except me. And so you have to start with taking care of yourself. Women, you're right. I will jump to do anything for my kids, but will I do the same thing for myself? No, I wouldn't. So now I had to learn that I need to take care of myself first. That is my first responsibility. If I can't take care of myself, I can't take care of my family, much less than my business, my clients. So yeah, I love that you brought that up. I love it, because we do feel like we should sacrifice ourselves. And when I sacrificed myself, I'm living proof of that. It did not do any good. I literally sacrificed myself, and I sacrificed my life. And that's not what I wanted. I was ready to live a life, and that was fulfilling to me also, and still helping people, but yet I need to take care of myself if I want to take care of other people. So I love that you brought that up.
Absolutely. And I think it makes, when we do that, we're better at what we do. And I do find that if I kind of, the buckets I mentioned earlier about women who go into business because of a passion, or ones who kind of stumble into getting, like myself, whose job career ended and then I decided to go in a different path. But the ones who go in with that ultimate passion are more likely to not necessarily pay themselves because they love what they're doing. They feel a calling, and it's like, you still deserve to pay yourself. You still deserve to be paid and all of that.
I was just thinking the exact same thing, that we feel like I should not get paid for this because I'm actually just helping people. And that is not a good place to be. That is a struggle I see over and over again with so many people. And then they find themselves in this hard situation, and it's very hard to get out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, what you're sharing is something I see a lot of. And I don't want other people to end up in the emergency room and burnt out because they didn't put themselves first.
Oh my gosh, me neither. No.
Something you said earlier, which was make your priorities first. This is the time of year. This episode will go out in December, early January, where everybody's planning. And if you're planning for your I personally believe, and anybody who listens to me, I believe in planning every 90 days, not once a year. You revisit your vision every 90 days and you plan for the next 90 days. So to me, January is no different than April, than June, than whatever. So that's my own personal belief on planning, but a lot of people are. And when you set your priorities, if you set too many goals for your business, you're not going to get them done. And if you set too many goals for your business that don't align with your personal goals and don't align with what you want for your, I never like the word work-life balance, but the holistic life, then you're going to do it. So it's a great point of setting really realistic goals for yourself.
And boundary.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I just don't want to also, I just want to bring up, I feel like also with the holidays, with us speaking about like our challenges as women entrepreneurs, boundaries is so important, because on top of just serving and fulfilling our purpose, if we don't have boundaries in place, then we can easily allow other people to push us into that trap of people pleaser, or just things that are not good for us. So I think it's important also to just research every time, looking at our goals. How are my boundaries working? Do I need to adjust my boundaries more? And so I just feel like that's also another important element of all of this.
Absolutely. And sometimes I think we need boundaries for our own self. Depending on your personality. I have a client who's definitely there's another shiny object. I want to go play with that because it's interesting and it's exciting. And they lose focus and they don't get that next. They miss the final steps of achieving what they want to achieve because they're off chasing the next shiny object. And in today's internet world, there are so many shiny objects coming at us. And, it's early December when we're recording this, and most of us have just been through the Black Friday, Cyber Monday craziness that went on. And this is the first year I was just inundated with emails. And if I went on every single one and read every single one, I would have been shiny object to death in that world. So having those boundaries is a great way to say, this doesn't fit into my shiny objects. It doesn't fit into my priorities, and then pushing that off.
Yeah, and it can save you a lot of money too, because I was tempted to want to purchase every single thing from the emails on Black Friday and Cyber Monday.
Exactly. But they pull you off your focus, right? And that's some of the important things when we have all this stuff coming up. Excellent. I want to talk a bit about like your very unique expertise and your very unique business, which I think is amazing. What were the difficulties of creating a business around such a sensitive topic?
So challenging. First of all, because I feel like I've had so many things come up for myself that wanted to just kind of hold me back from actually helping people in this area, because it's something that people are not really willing to openly discuss or talk about. And it's something that they've pushed down for so long, so far down, that they don't really want to bring it up. When the feelings come up, they want to keep suppressing them. I think of the word depressed, because they suppress them, and that causes and leads to depression. And so my whole purpose and passion is, I don't want to see people. I've literally seen women who did not want to keep on living anymore after their abortion. And I would go to their house. I would see them lying on the sofa, not wanting to get up, not wanting to live anymore. And that's what drove my heart to feel like this needs to stop. If I can help women to not feel this way, and I know I can, then I will do that no matter what, And so that is what led me to want to do the work so much. But the challenge is that it is something that it's not an excitement thing. It's not a happy thing. So that's the challenging part, is just that it's a very emotional, and not just one emotion. It's a complex emotional. It's like so many emotions and so many feelings and so many thoughts. And the society is giving them so many negative connotation, negative words around abortion, that they just are caused to feel so much shame and so much guilt and so much pain, and they don't know what to do with it. So that's the hard part of it.
Yeah, I would think marketing to that. I mean, you have a positive end of the marketing, which is, which is the benefit of resolving and coming to terms with, for lack of a better word, and getting comfortable with the decisions in life and being able to grieve, I'm sure, is part of the process that people need to go through. But do you find, how do other business people accept or listen to when you say what you do? What reaction do you get from other people?
The reaction I get from people ever since I started, they say, oh, wow, this is so needed. This is such a needed niche. Yeah, when that's what the response that I get from other business people, from other people who possibly and most likely have not been through it. So I appreciate that. That's actually what keeps me going through the hard times, is those encouraging comments. But the challenging part is that the women and the men who've actually had abortions, like, they're not the ones who at first say that, like, oh wow, this is a great thing you're doing, because they're hurting, like they don't see it yet. And that is the challenge of it. But I am a transformation coach. So I take them from their painful tears, and then that through our process, they are transformed. So they transform a negative experience, or experience filled with a lot of pain and negative thoughts, to something that is a beautiful memory of their baby. So I help transform something that has caused them so much pain, so much tears, into a more positive, more lightful, more filled with love, because abortion is usually chosen and going through out of fear. And so it's basically like everything else in life. It's gone from fear to love. They hate themselves after abortion, and I help them love themselves again. I help them forgive themselves again. I help them to see their worth again, and that they are not the person who had an abortion. Like, they went through an abortion experience, that does not make them who they are.
Right. Well, that's amazing. And I think you're a great example of the power of getting very specific about your niche, which is a big thing that business owners resist. But your niche is very specific. And to me, that's what makes you memorable. It's what makes you, if I met someone who was in that situation, it would be very easy to say, well, you should go talk to Michelle, because it's a very memorable niche. And it's a courageous niche, because it is definitely a unique and courageous niche. So I think that's a wonderful example for other women who run businesses, is that niching really can be powerful, because your passion comes out, your belief in what you do, your belief in the transformations all come out in what you just said. So that's a really wonderful example of the power of being specific on your niche.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. And, there's been times in my life when I had to take a break and I had to stop. And I can remember people saying, are you ever going to do it again? And you know what? My original response was just, I didn't even have to think about it. Like, of course, yes, I will. Like, this is my passion. I'm going to do this till the day I die. And there has been times where throughout this, 18-year journey, I have wanted to, feel like, maybe that's over. Maybe that's done. And I'm reminded that, nope, it's not over yet. You're still alive, Michelle. You still have a voice, and you still have 2 feet. And, you can still even more so do what you were called to do. And I think that's just another thing, that even though we know what our purpose is and we know what our passion is, it's not always easy. I don't want anyone to ever think like, oh, it's just so easy once they know. Nope, it's not.
It's work. It's work.
It's work. Yes.
I was reading something somewhere about entrepreneurs. It's the people who quit working for someone else for 40 hours a week and get paid well, so they can work for themselves for 90 hours a week and not get paid well initially. It is, no matter what with entrepreneurialness, whether it's a passion that drives me or whether it's the lifestyle it brings that drives us, it's usually a combination of both. It's a unique thing. And once you start it and once you commit to it, it's a very difficult thing to go back and not, because there's a whole bunch of elements of it that we really love. Whether it's helping our clients, it's the lifestyle we can create. It's making a difference. There's a whole bunch of things that come into the entrepreneurial world that it's hard to say, oh, I'll get a job.
Yeah. And you know what, just like you said earlier about my niche, when I think about giving up, I think about the women and the men who are crying alone in the dark, and they don't know what to do next. And that's what keeps me going. They're the ones that keep me getting up, keeping me want to create content and reaching out to them and speaking to them, because I don't want anyone to go to their grave or, to take their last breath and having that secret of abortion inside their heart. And I've literally met women who have that, elderly women who are so old that have hid a secret their entire life. And I don't want anyone to feel that they have to do that, because there's no reason for that.
And to me, I mean, I live in a country, I'm in Canada, you're in the US, where abortion is very legal. There's no issue, very open, but it's still a stigma. It's still something we hide. So it's a very powerful thing. If somebody's listening to this call and they want to talk to you about an abortion they've had, or they want to connect with you, how can they connect with you? What would be the best?
The easiest way is to go to www.tears, TEARS, treasures with an S.com. That's my website. But I am very active on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. I have a Facebook group. So the Facebook page is Tears to Treasures Healing After Abortion. And that's for anyone, who wants to learn more about abortion and healing from abortion. And, and let me say this also, I really, really talk to people too about preventing abortion. So like, if they're not sure, I help them with, because a lot of people have told me, I wish I would have known this before. So that drew me into, making sure that let's try to prevent it if, people are regretting it so much. So I like to talk about pre-abortion as well as post-abortion. And then I also have a group, which is a private secret group, but you can find it searching. You can also get to it easily through the link on my Facebook page. But that group is for women who have actually had abortions, and it's only for women right now, this one, because a lot of times men, they don't need to have the men in the group, so I'll have a separate group only for men. Men and women deal with things very differently, and especially when it comes to abortion. So I have a group that is for women, that they can come and feel like they're not alone. There's other women, all the other women in there have had abortions as well. Mm-hmm. And so they will not feel judged. They won't feel condemned. They won't feel anything except supported, heard, understood. And so I definitely recommend, if anyone is struggling with an abortion, to find me on Facebook and then request to join the group.
I'll put all that in the show notes anyways. I put all your links in the show notes for people to connect. So thank you very much for that. We're getting near the end of our time, so I have 3 quick questions for you, or 3 questions. The first one is, what's your superpower? If you were to look at yourself, what's your superpower?
My superpower is my source.
Your what, sorry?
My source, my energy, my source. Like, that's what gives me my compassion for people and the light that I need to share and shine into the dark areas of people's life and their soul. And so I believe that is very powerful, to have the light from the universe to share and spread into the dark areas, because an abortion is a dark area for women and men.
Excellent. Do you have a favorite quote?
I do. I love this quote. I now arise from the negativity of the past. I am free to live a new life.
Love that. What's the important message you would leave for a woman entrepreneur? Based on your experiences and where you're at, what message would you like to leave with other women entrepreneurs who are ready for more in their business?
For the woman entrepreneur who's ready for more, I say, go for it. Go for it. Whatever it is, if you're feeling led and your heart and your passion and your gut is telling you to do something and you're scared as heck, go for it.
Excellent. Perfect advice. So thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate you being on this, and I wish you all the success in what you're doing.
You're welcome. And thank you so much. And it's such an honor and privilege to be on your podcast and to have met you. And I just look forward to doing more work with you again. And I love what you're doing, putting out in the world to help women. And I just really appreciate you so much. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Ready for More podcast. You can find today's show notes and links at www.igniteyourmarket.com/readyformore. My name is Heather Cameron. I'm your podcast host. And when I'm not hosting this podcast, I'm busy working with entrepreneurial women like you who are ready for more in their business and are looking to get focused on their own unique path to success. You can find more about myself and my programs at www.igniteyourmarket.com. If you like what you heard, feel free to rate, review, and share with your friends. And don't miss an episode by subscribing. Until next time, remember, now is the best time to focus on your more and be inspired by your own unique gifts.